Hey everyone, welcome to our finances training. This is the fourth in our four-part series of advanced nation builder trainings. I'm Jason Meir, our training manager. Really happy to be leading today's training and joined by Alex Schmidt, one of our external trainers here at Nation Builder, to answer your questions via chat. So if you haven't been with us before, I think everyone here is a veteran training consumer, so I think we're in good shape there. But just for posterity's sake, we're going to keep everyone muted in the background so that we can get a really good recording to upload to Vimeo for all of you to view in case there's anything you want to follow up on from today's training. But we'll also answering your questions as we go along via chat. Alex is an extraordinarily fast typer, so he often tries to beat me to including links in chat. So definitely we'll be getting some fast and really quick well thought out answers from him. I'll also take some questions at various points throughout today's training, take some breaks from my flow to answer those questions. And also feel free to join us on a webcam if you feel like hanging out with us. So in the finances training today, we're really going to be bringing together a lot of the stuff that we've already dealt with because Nation Builder is such an integrated system. Much of what happens with finances is going to tie in deeply with what we've already learned about setting up pages on our website, for instance, and interacting with individual people's profiles in the linked people database. So, but in order to get that all up and running, we're going to need to start by actually connecting a bank account to our Nation Builder website. Since Nation Builder isn't actually a payment processor, which are those services like PayPal that take money from individuals and give them to merchants or organizations, much like the ones that you all are running. We don't actually do that, but we'll allow you to incorporate in those payment processor accounts into your nation so that we can capture the information as people make payments, but also make sure that you get your money passed through by one of those processors. So we'll talk about the decision of selecting which processor makes the most sense for you. And then once we've figured that out and talked about the basics of getting that account up and running, we'll actually go through all the different ways you can take payments through your Nation Builder website, whether that's actually getting money up front for donation purposes, having people pay for memberships so that they can get membership-only access to your website, or purchasing tickets on your website. We'll also be able to have people pledge to give money in the future through our Money Bond page. And we'll also talk about great ways you can set up individual people to fundraise on your behalf through their public profiles on your Nation Builder website. So lots and lots of different options for how you can take payments or future promises of payment through your website. These are going to be different action pages that we'll leverage to do so. So very similar in concept to the things we were doing in our website training, but very specifically focused around fundraising and payment taking efforts. Then we'll get into the people database a little bit because a lot of the money that you bring in may actually not be from your website. You'll get a check from someone or a fistful of dollars. You have a customer who you need to charge for an invoice of service. All of this can be done directly from an individual's profile under the finances section, which will review all of the options there. And some of these things will automatically be created in that area when the person takes an action on your website that's related to that particular payment option. But we'll also want to be able to do it from the control panel manually as well. And then finally, as is very much the case in previous trainings, dealing with an individual profile is definitely important. But if we're wanting to do outreach to people based on their previous history, it's often awesome to be able to do that in groups of people. So we're going to talk about how you can actually generate donor targeting lists based on how much people have given in the past. And also, in case you need to generate reports of financial transactions like donations for compliance purposes or to report out and compare to your bank account, you'll also be able to run those kinds of reports as well. And we'll talk about the two different places you'll do those, whether you're searching for transactions or donors themselves. So that's our basic outline for today. Again, questions into chat, and any ones that are good for the group to hear. If Alex doesn't get to them first, I will answer in between breaks between each of these four sections. Great, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to land here on our Nation Builder control panel. And when you're first selecting a bank account to really get up and running with your fundraising efforts, you're going to do that from your global settings, because fundraising is actually going to touch so many different parts of the control panel, as we've talked about. We'll get into the Finances tab a little bit later in today's training, which is pretty much going to be a place where we see summary of different types of financial information, who our top fundraisers are, how much money each of them have raised, those different groupings of how transactions have come in. So Finances tab will really be more of a summary area, but we'll be able to see as we go along here that actually taking payments will happen through your website, or you'll be manually answering them on people profiles in your people database. But in order to get any of this working, you'll need to first set up a bank account under your settings and then bank accounts. You'll notice here I've got a series of different accounts already set up on the Ape for Emperor Nation. And this is going to be very similar to what you're able to do underneath your website. You can have as many websites as you want. You can also have as many bank accounts that link into your Nation Builder website. This would be great if you've got, for instance, you're a nonprofit organization and you've got a 501c3 account and a 501c4 account. You need to keep those payments separate for compliance reasons. Well, you can easily set up each bank account with a different processor and then select which of your pages that you create on the website is connecting to each. So you can have a donation page for the C3, another donation page for the C4, and have them funnel into the different accounts. So you don't have to mess with that on the other side of actually collecting the payments. So when you go to select a new account, it's going to prompt you to select from which processor you want to choose. Now, Nation Builder integrates with 5 processors at this point in time. There's actually a 6th, ActBlue, which is a Democrat-only processor in the United States that you can connect through a page on your website. So if you're interested in using ActBlue, let us know via chat, and we'll send you some information about how you can connect that page in a little bit of a different way. With ActBlue, you can't actually configure it to set up payments through your website in the same way that you can for each of these other processors. So anything that we describe in the next section about actions you can create on your website for people to take via payment, assume that you can only do that for these 5 processors, and in some cases, only a smaller set of those as well. So you'll notice that each of these processors has kind of 3 main pieces of information about them that are going to determine which one is the best for us. Now again, to reiterate from the top, when we're talking about a payment processor, this is actually the company that's going to make the transaction go from the individual who gives you their credit card into your bank account. Now, each processor is going to have different rates that they charge to provide this service to you. And Nation Builder actually doesn't get in the middle of any of that rate information. We don't charge anything for transactions processed through a Nation Builder website. We're just capturing the history that each of these processors is making on your behalf. So when your donor comes to the website, Nation Builder is going to capture their information and then actually activate the processor to make the payment end up in your bank account. So when you see here, there's the question of whether or not a merchant account is required for that processor. A merchant account is actually something that you'll set up directly through your banking institution. So PayPal, for instance, does not require an account. That's because you can go to the PayPal website, enter in your bank routing information, and PayPal will actually pass that information and the transaction through for you. A merchant account, though, you'll actually set up with the bank, and the benefit there is that it's an instantaneous transfer. There's no time for the payment to pass through. There's no middleman in that process. Generally, also, merchant accounts will have a lower percentage processing fee per transaction, but there's going to be a monthly fee, likely, or a setup cost up front. So it really makes sense to do a merchant account if you're going to be having a super high volume of donations at a high amount, because in that case, you're going to want to minimize the percentage cost, and you might be willing to take a little bit more of a one-time payment hit in order to do so. You can do that through PayPal Payflow Pro, Sage Pay if you're in the UK or some other surrounding countries that are displayed there, or Authorize.net. We'll actually be setting up an Authorize.net account today because it's probably the most robust for being able to do every type of payment through a Nation Builder website. And then when we see the second question on each processor, whether or not it supports recurring payments. So there's going to be different ways that we can set up payments on our Nation Builder website that allow Nation Builder to not just take a payment at one moment in time, but to do it on an ongoing basis. So you'll be able to say, hey, instead of just donating $10 the second they submit the button, they're actually signing up to give $10 right now, $10 again a month from now, and so on and so forth out into the future. So if you want to be able to take these kinds of recurring payments where NationBuilder just knows to tell the processor to charge it on a monthly basis, you're going to need to have either a PayPal or an authorized.net account, which are the two that we have currently set up to support recurring. For instance, a democracy engine as a processor theoretically can do recurring payments on their end, but it's not set up that way in NationBuilder. So make sure that you get that right if you're wanting to take these interval type payments. Cool. If it's really just something where you need to get your fundraising up and running super quickly, one great way to do that directly from within NationBuilder is to select Democracy Engine as your processor. If you notice here, when you select Democracy Engine, you can actually just enter in your bank account information right into NationBuilder and be taking payments within 24 hours. So if you need to get up and running with fundraising really quickly, could be a great option. And while you wait for your merchant account or something else to get set up, if you want to take recurring or have that instantaneous transfer of payment happen. So that we can demonstrate everything today, we're going to select authorized.net. And as you set up any of these processors, make sure you go to our support site and see if there's any additional steps you'll need to take to configure that particular processor. In the case with the authorized.net, there's some stuff you're going to have to set up on the authorized.net account side before you actually enter in the login information here into NationBuilder. So again, depending on what processor you choose, go ahead and check out the relevant documentation on the nationbuilder.com support site. To make sure that you're getting everything set up so the payments are going as you expect. So we're going to set up a new pack for the Abe for Emperor campaign. And this pack has its own bank account. So we'll go ahead and enter in our login information here. You'll see here there's stuff you'll need to set up on the authorized.net side to make this happen. And then also when you're setting up an account, you're basically also going to be configuring the type of information you're going to require from people once they decide to make payment through any page on your website that's connected to this account. So generally for political and nonprofit fundraising efforts, there's often going to be times where you need to collect certain information like employer, occupation, what corporation this donation has been made on behalf of. And if you need to require those types of fields, you'll set that up on the bank account level. So for instance, because this is a political campaign contribution, it would be taxed. So we wouldn't want to uncheck this box. Again, if you need to specify tax deductibility, it's going to be here on the account. And if we want to require any fields on payment pages that use this account, we'll have to select those here. You can also just have any amount of contribution rules that'll appear on a payment page. And then in order to actually complete the payment, your donor would have to say that they agree to whatever these rules are. So cool, we're only accepting non-criminal funds. High bar for this PAC organization. So we've now got this PAC account set up and ready to go. And once we get to our website, we'll be able to set up different actions for people to take so that they can make payments to our PAC account. So before we get into the website, I want to make sure we're good to go on the payment processor side of things. Any questions about selecting a processor, what makes sense to go into that calculation? Alrighty, cool. So if you do have some as we go along here, please do drop them into chat. Alex is at the ready. I can see him. He is super excited. Or maybe he's already chatting with people and I just don't know it because you guys are keeping me out of the conversation. That's totally cool too. All right, so as is the case with any other actions that you're able to have people take on your NationBuilder website, there's going to be a whole host of different options here. And as I talk through each of the different pages you can create, I'm going to introduce some examples of situations in which you might actually configure them in a particular way. So it's important to note that any payment that happens on a Nation Builder website is ultimately going to happen through either a donation or an invoice page. Now we're going to dive into donation pages a little bit more deeply for the time being. We'll get back around to invoices a little bit later in the training. And just note that as we continue to set up future options like tickets to events or membership payments, we're going to ultimately end up on a donation or invoice page to make that payment at a later date. So let me go ahead and go here to my website. And first thing we're going to do is just simply set up a basic donation page for the campaign. So we'll create a new page, select donate as the title, and then select the donation page template. Notice here that we're going to be able to accept credit card donations, and we can have goals for donors and donation totals, publicly recognize recent donors, and respond to donors with a receipt. I'm going to actually go ahead and include this in the top navigation because it's one of the most important things people can do on our website. And now we're going to get into the settings of setting up our donation page. Now, a couple of really key things to notice here. Number one, we're going to want to select the proper bank account for payments to go into. So we actually set this up for the High Emperor pack. So now any payments that come in through this specific page will go into our High Emperor account. We'll have some familiar settings here where we can assign donors to a specific point person, tag them as being a donor of a specific type, and mark them for follow-up. Maybe we want to thank them for their donation. So very similar to any other action that you can have through a Nation Builder website. But with any given donation page, you're really going to be determining whether or not you want to give people flexibility in how they're electing to give you payment. So right here from the top, we're going to be able to set whether the payment that this person is making is going to be a one-time payment or a monthly payment through this particular page. So if we select one time, we can then also select if people are going to be given the option to donate various different amounts, or if we're just going to select one specific amount. So for instance, for $10, one-time payment, no options, you might do that if you're not actually trying to solicit different donation amounts. Maybe this is just that you're going to offer people a prize if they give $10 to the campaign. So this donation page is still a donation page in the sense that it's taking a payment, but perhaps the description that you give here is if you donate $10 through this page, you're entitled to get a t-shirt from the campaign. Then you can tag the person as being a t-shirt recipient or whatever. So you can imagine having multiple different donation pages if you're taking different sorts of payments and for different reasons. Notice here that when you've got a donation page set up, you're going to have different stages that people go through, which is going to improve the likelihood that people actually complete your donation form. Whether they select the amount they want to give, fill in their contact info, and if they're already signed in, it'll pre-populate that information. And then finally, prompt them to enter their payment information, including asking them to confirm that those contribution rules that we set up for this account are things that they actually agree to. So we can also obviously accept multiple amounts. Or we can allow payments to be made in installments. This is essentially like the layaway of the internet. So if you've got a lower income or a younger donor base, you may want to give them the option of saying, hey, I'm totally willing to donate $1,000, but I can't do it all up front. Maybe I can do it up to 6-month installments. It's just a great way of giving people a little bit more flexibility. And again, you'll need the recurring payment option in order to be able to give people the option to set up payments via installments. We'll see a little bit later on a person's profile how these different types of donations, whether they're monthly or installment plans, will show up a little bit differently on an individual's record in their Finances tab. If you select monthly donations, it's going to be pretty similar. Whether you can select that people will give $1,000 a month, or if you're going to give them the opportunity to select multiple different amounts. So in general, I would tend to prefer monthly donations because it's been shown that people will stick with them for a greater period of time. You get a total higher amounts than if you just get a one-time donation. So I'll go ahead and say that my preference on this donation page is to accept monthly payments. And we'll see here that there's a tracking code option where any payment that comes in through this page can get tagged much the same way that we can tag individual people who take a specific action. When we get to our finances dashboard a little bit later on, this will be great for seeing that we can track different sources for payments to come in. So all of these different ways that we can have people make payments through our site can have different tracking codes so that we can easily keep track of how much money is coming in via each avenue. Now, if we select monthly donations for this page, you'll notice that it's pretty much one or the other. You can take monthly payments on a page or one-time payments. If you want to be able to give people the option of doing one or the other, you're totally able to do so. It's just going to require using some of the stuff that we've already learned about setting up a website and featuring each of those different options as a subpage of the other one. So since we probably want, in this case, monthly donors as our preference, we'll go ahead and keep the main donate page as a monthly payment one. Then we can go into the subpages here, create a new subpage for one-time donations. Again, selecting a donation template to start with. We'll put this in the top nav so that it shows up in our dropdown. But then this one will select one-time payments instead of monthly. And then on our public website, we'll have both options underneath the donation tab. But when you click on donate, it's going to feature our preferred option, which is for people to become monthly donors. So that's donation pages. And again, as we select different types of payments for people to make, some of them will end up landing on the donation page to automatically complete that payment. And in that case, it'll just auto-complete the amount that the person is paying. So again, if someone is buying a ticket that costs $50 and we elect to pay it on this donation page, it won't let us select a different amount. It's just going to pre-populate. Your ticket costs $50. Now step through these stages to complete the payment. Now, a little bit different from a donation page where you're given the option of how much you're going to pay and then fill out your information is a invoice page. You'll actually need to have the customer add-on in your nation in order to take and manage invoices on individual people's profiles. If you're unsure about where to enable this, you can do so from the Billings and Add-ons tab here under Settings. You can check off that you want to be able to create invoices. Unlike donation pages, invoice pages are going to actually prompt you to pay any outstanding invoices that can be found on your existing profile. Whereas donation pages prompt you to give any amount that the person who set up that page has said you're allowed to give on that particular page. So just to give an example of what that looks like, we'll go ahead and link this to our Emperor pack. And when I go to the live page on my website, I'm currently logged in as Jason Meir. And so you'll notice here that on my invoice page, I'm getting a message that says, you don't have any outstanding invoices. There's nothing on my profile that indicates that I owe any open invoices to the Aid for Emperor campaign. Now, if we link this up to a ticketed event or a membership payment, the act of buying that ticket or buying that membership would create an invoice on my profile and then prompt me to pay it here on the invoice page. So it's just a little bit of a different experience for folks. And as we'll see a little bit later when we create a manual invoice in my profile, this is going to change once an invoice is actually available on my individual record. So flow is different between donation and invoice pages as you've seen so far. So if you want to take either ticketed payments to make your events actually require payment at the door, or if you want to have people pay for memberships so that they can get access to members-only content on your website, you've got two different options in those cases for how you want the payments to be completed. Let's go ahead and go check out an event and see how quickly we can add tickets to it and link that to a donation or invoice page for people to actually make the payment. Let's go ahead and find an event here under our calendar. We've got our Down with Douglas dinner, probably something we'd want to sell tickets to. So we can select here under the basics to sell tickets, and then you'll redirect to an invoice or donation page in order to make that payment. So you could say, go to our Emperor Loves Invoices page once you complete the payment, and tracking code. And then once you've selected to sell tickets, you can set up the different level of tickets that you want to offer people. At each level, you'll say how much it costs and how many tickets that level will purchase you. So in this case, we've got a $5 option for one ticket, a $10 option for a gold plate ticket. Then if you check it out live on the website, I can select that I want a $10 gold plate ticket. And this will now send me to that Emperor Loves Invoices page, showing me an invoice of what I've elected to purchase, and then prompting me to fill out the payment. Now, in the case of a paid membership page, it's going to be pretty similar to our ticketed page in the sense that we're going to give people different ways that they can acquire memberships within our nation and how much each of those memberships would cost. Let's go ahead and find ourselves a membership page. Remember, in our website, we can locate them by the type of page like this. You can see it within our membership settings. For all the different types of memberships we can have people buy, people can be tagged differently for each membership level. So in this case, because the membership is the most specific thing that's happening, that tracking code will supersede any other tracking codes that we set up on the donation page. So got our donate page. Any payments that come in through this page will get the paid member tag. Then with the options, we're going to be selecting different levels of membership people can acquire through this particular page. And as you're setting up a membership level, you're going to be able to specify not only how much it costs at this moment in time, but how long that membership should last, and if you want to renew that membership automatically at the end of the period. So again, you'll need recurring payments enabled to be able to do these ongoing memberships. And that's just one of the ways that you can customize how memberships go on going forward. So just to take a peek in here, we've got the silver level, which costs $2 per month, and it'll renew automatically. So check that out live. See your different options, and if you elect to purchase them, because this is connected to our donate page, I say $10 for the platinum membership. It'll dump me out here on the donation page, pre-populating that $10 amount from my membership payment page. So that's what I was talking about earlier about any kind of other payment option that you set up is going to ultimately end up on a donation or an invoice page, but pre-populate the information based on what you selected on either of those two pages. Now, elsewhere in fundraising, if we're not actually trying to gather money at that moment in time, maybe we want to get people fundraising on our behalf. And Alex, if you could hold on that membership question, I want to address memberships in general to the group as well. So we can actually also get people not just give us money at this moment in time, but to promise that they'll do so at some point in the future, which is in fundraising terms often referred to as a pledge. So through our Money Bomb page, we can actually create urgency around a fundraising drive, very similar to how you can get people to, like, on Kickstarter, do a crowdfunding campaign and get them motivated around a specific date that's coming up in the future that you need to raise a certain amount of money by. So for a Money Bomb, we can select for it to happen, some date out in the future, September 2014. Have people pledge different amounts. Like we've got a pledge for 50 here previously. Let's cancel that. I'm going to instead pledge 100, and we'll see what that looks like on my profile in a few minutes. So the key here with the pledge is that you're always going to want to follow up on that pledge to actually make sure the person gives you the money, whether that's via check or cash or actually coming back to your website to do it. So it's important to set follow-up as people pledge, so that you remember to get back in touch with them about the money that they've promised to give you. Now, if you want to supercharge your fundraising efforts so that you're not even yourself as a administrator or control panel user of the nation wholly responsible for all fundraising efforts, you can really activate your core supporters in Nation Builder to do that for you through our personal fundraising efforts, which happen through public profiles on your main Nation Builder website. If you're not familiar with public profiles, you'll notice here that when I'm logged into the website, there is this little avatar that pops up for my profile in the Nation Builder backend database. But if I click here on the public profile option, it's going to show some publicly available information about me. Some of the key things that I've done to participate in the nation, pull in my Twitter account if applicable, and my associated bio information. But you'll see that there is an option for me here to look at my account settings for my public profile. So of people that are really deeply engaged and might actually do some fundraising on your behalf, you can absolutely ask them to fundraise from their own individual profile page here. They can, from their account settings, set a fundraising goal. So maybe 10 grand is my goal. And you'll then notice that from my public profile then, I'm going to have a little goal bar with how much I've actually raised on behalf of the campaign here so far. You'll notice then that I can give out this link to any of my friends, and it's going to be my specific page that they can land on and donate to the campaign specifically on my behalf. Now, they'll be doing that through one of these buttons that we've added to our supporter nav. If you joined us for the website training, you may have remembered that we were able to add really key actions here. The cool thing about these buttons when they're on a public profile page is that they'll actually tie back to you as a recruiter of whatever's happening there. So if you go back into your website, we're going to want to make sure that we have an option for a donation button there. So we can do that from our Lincoln for Emperor website. Go to the supporter nav and create a donate button that links to the donate page. And now if we go back to my public profile, you'll see that that button is now there. And when I click on it, or where I instruct other people to click on it, it'll take them to the donate page, but with my recruiter information attached to the end of the link. So any payment that comes in now through this particular link will be credited to me as an individual fundraiser. And again, you'll be able to track your top fundraisers within your finances dashboard. But again, just a great way of getting people who are really, really engaged with you, maybe members of your host committee or your top fundraisers and donors. This is just a great way to get them more involved and easily be able to figure out that they're the source of any incoming payments that come your way. So lots and lots of options for fundraising through your Nation Builder website, taking payments in general. So get creative and think about what might make the most sense for your community. I really encourage you to think through all these different options. There's a great guide on all the different options you have for fundraising. I think it's called How to Fundraising. And if you're interested in doing a little bit more with this public profile personal fundraising, go ahead and look for personal fundraising pages under the Nation Builder support section. So there was a question a little while ago when we were talking about memberships, where there was, can memberships automatically expire when the card stops working? So we're actually in the middle right now as we speak. Within the next few weeks, I'm going to be rolling out some big time changes to how memberships work. And at that point in time, memberships will have a grace period once the credit card on file becomes invalid. So they'll remain a member for the grace period, but then at the end of the grace period, they'll go into like a lapsed membership status, where they'll actually get an auto response email that prompts them to fill out their new credit card information. So you don't even have to worry about any of the follow-up around individual people's memberships. The system will send them all the requisite emails that are needed, whether they're in need of renewal or have gone overdue in their renewal efforts. So very, very soon, coming down the pike, so that's like an automated system. For now, memberships will last for as long as they are paid for, and then any renewal that happens, any failed renewal will have the person lose their membership. Any more questions before we get into how this all shows up in an individual person's profile? What if we don't add an expiration date? Great question. If you don't add an expiration date, then the membership will extend infinitely. You'll be able to manually edit someone's membership status from within their profile in the database. So that could be something you manage manually. Even if the card stops working. Got it. Okay, I see what you're saying. So you've got like a recurring membership setup. So there's theoretically two ways that this could go about, right? You could have a membership that lasts for like 90 years and theoretically then doesn't have an expiration date. If you set it to recur every month and the card stops working, then for the time being, that person will lose their membership. But once we make these changes in the next couple of weeks, they're going to get a notification that says, hey, the card on file that you had isn't working anymore. You need to update that information or you're going to lose your membership in whatever the grace period that you've defined. So for the time being, members will require individual follow-up on your part to get their membership back if their card lapses, but big changes coming there in the short term. Cool. Yeah. So we're going to help migrate all existing recurring donations and memberships for customers that are using those. Cool. No problem. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into, I obviously did a bunch of different stuff with my individual fundraising efforts as a person from the public website. So now we want to get into how this all appears on an individual person's profile. So first of all, we can see a summary of all of these payments and things across the nation under our Finances tab. So if we want to see the performance of any of our individual tracking codes, who of our fundraisers has actually brought in the most money? We can see that kind of summary information here from our Finances tab, or just see donations that have come in over time. A little bit later on in today's training, when we start getting into pulling down transaction reports, we'll dive more into this donations tab. But these are all also places where you can manually enter new donations, new pledges, new memberships. But in general, I would suggest doing that sort of thing from an individual person's profile, because it's easier then to associate that information with them as an individual. So if we see, when we go to the people database and go to an individual person's profile, let's say Jason Muir, for instance, there's going to be a unique tab for all of the financial transactions that are related to my profile. You'll actually see a lot of that just pop up here in some of the basic call-out information. But to see a comprehensive listing of all of the invoices and donations and pledges that I've made over time, simply click into the Finances tab and you'll see the full list over here. To manually enter a new donation on a person's profile, simply go here to Donations, review all of the existing ones, and then select New Donation. Here you'll be able to specify whether you want to enter a one-time donation, a monthly donation, or an installment plan. So essentially, this is manually entering anything that you could already have configured from the public website. Notice also that each individual donation is going to have a fundraiser option. Again, if you have people do personal fundraising through your website, whoever the person is donating on behalf of will be the fundraiser. But by default, a person is their own fundraiser. Hey, I'm fundraising from my pocket right now. That's essentially the way that Nation Builder thinks about the fundraiser. The other cool thing in this section is that if you've got an existing pledge on a person's profile, which I now have because I pledged through that money bomb, you can actually, if you're manually entering in a donation, apply it underneath the pledge so that you make sure that you're seeing how people are actually fulfilling their outstanding pledges. So I can go ahead and say, oh, yeah, Jason actually brought in a $100 wad of cash to fulfill his pledge. And that'll update from his pledge record. Cool. We're now comfortable that he is giving us the money that he promised. So over here to the right are going to be the tabs that have to deal with our invoice functionality. So first, you'll see the Revenue tab, which indicates any already previously closed invoices that are associated with this individual person's profile. So looks like I paid for my wackiness on a previous training for $20 via check, and there's actually an outstanding invoice on my profile because I selected that I wanted a ticket to that dinner, but I didn't actually complete the payment for it. Now in Nation Builder, you can either require that people actually complete payment for any invoice, or there's two other options that you can have to pull from for a person to close that invoice. You got to think about an invoice like how you get your phone bill, for instance. You get like a charge for how much that service costs. So in this case, the ticket was $10. And then you can elect to, as the phone company, either require the person to pay that $10, or you can credit their account if you feel like they deserved $10 free for being a long-standing customer, or you messed up something with their service that indicated that you should probably just give it to them for free and not actually require them to pay you revenue. So in Nation Builder, we can also accept prepaid amounts that new invoices will get pulled from. So if someone like sends you a big check and then just wants to deduct from that over time, you would enter that under prepaid. But if you elect to give someone credit, you're essentially then saying that whatever amount that you're giving that person, you don't want them to have to pay that amount in new invoices. So in this case, I've got $15 in open credit on my profile. So we can actually just go to this $10 outstanding invoice and go ahead and elect to pay it via credit. And then I'll automatically deduct that $10 from my credit amount and close the invoice. So you'll no longer be prompting me to pay for the invoice on the website because it's just going to get deducted from my credit amount. On any individual invoice, you're also able to set the terms that that invoice was for, so like the time frame. If you want to discount it, have it be paid on a particular page, or give the person more time to pay the invoice before you send them a email notification of the fact that it's remained open for too long and therefore gone into overdue status. Additionally, under any invoice or donation, you'll be able to refund that amount, which you'll also have to check in the processor for to make sure that the payment has actually gone back through. So hopefully that helps differentiate a little bit better between when you might use individual donations versus invoices. Obviously, invoices give you a little bit more information about what exact service was provided for that payment, whereas the donation is generally something you'll accept for fundraising purposes. Now, if you've got a list of previous donations from another system that you want to bring into Nation Builder, it's going to be very similar to the process that you went through to bring in new people into your database. You're going to need to prepare a CSV file from your spreadsheet, and then go ahead and do an import into the Nation Builder control panel. For donations, you'll do this actually underneath the Finances tab, under your donation listing. And select Import and choose File. Got a basic donation import here we can practice on. And because donations are going to be attached to individual people in the database, you're going to want to make sure, again, with the same principle as when you're importing in people from another system, that you've got a uniquely identifying piece of information about that person so that we know to add the donation directly to their profile. If you're trying to figure out what fields to map to when you're doing a donation import, go ahead and check out our importing donor history FAQ, which Alex can probably find and include in chat here in a second. So we'll go ahead and map first and last name, the amount. An email in this case will be our unique identifier. Forgot to ignore the header row. So there we go. Payment type name, date. Succeeded at. So yeah, again, just reference your donor history import documentation to understand what all of the fields are that you're going to need to map to in order to get the information to the right places. That should be good. That should be good enough for now. Go ahead and start the import. And it's going to start running that effort. It's like we've added, there should ultimately be, getting impatient here, there should ultimately be about 168 donations that come in. And similarly, we'll see new versus updated with any errors, almost exactly the same thing that you'd see if you're importing in people. There we go, 168 new donations. We'll actually search on these donations in the next section to be able to pull a financial report to confirm that our books actually reflect what we're seeing here in our database. So that's all the different ways you can manually go in and make changes to donations and invoices in your nation builder database. Any questions on anything we just talked about before we get into actually filtering and targeting in our database based on previous transaction history? Cool. All right. So it's good that we actually kind of came to this section of the Finances tab, because it's important to be able to consider what sort of information we're seeing here from finances versus what we're seeing from within our people database. Now, when it comes to searching our previous transactions in Nation Builder, there's really two main things we're probably going to want to be getting out of that. One is going to be a set of transactions in a certain time frame or of a certain type, or tied in with a certain campaign that we're going to need to be able to run against our bank account to ensure that we're in compliance, that we've have all of our money accounted for, and we're reporting effectively on who made which donation. So in that scenario, we're actually going to be more interested in the individual transactions themselves, but making sure that they're attached to the information about who actually gave those donations. We also may want to be able to look at people based on their previous donor history to be able to reach out to donors and reactivate them or resolicit them to get them to continue to give money to our campaign based on what they've given to us in the past. So in these two different scenarios, we're going to generally look in two different areas of the control panel for that information. When we're dealing with fundraising compliance efforts or checking against our existing accounts, we're going to do that generally from our donations listing here, filtering all transactions. Whereas from our people database, we'll be able to look at donor history, but the results that we'll get will actually be individual donors so that we can reach out to them to resolicit them and get them to donate again. So let's start off with the second case, the folks who we want to reach out to again because we know that they're good donors and they've been good donors in the past. So we can begin to filter and then start under new criteria. You can see here there's customer and donor history, which is going to allow us to look at total behavior of how those people have contributed to us over time. So things like this person has pledged or has donated to us, how many times they've donated, at what volume they've donated, even within this particular fundraising cycle. So let's say we want to get folks who haven't donated since our last major fundraising drive. Maybe their most recent donation was within our last big drive in January 2013. So anyone who whose most recent donation is not in the last year. Awesome. So voila, we get those 168, which correspond to our 168 donations that we just imported. So these are all previous donors. Okay, maybe we'll get even a little bit more narrow. People who donated in a total amount greater than $400. This is our high dollar donor outreach. Okay, that gets us down to 121. Cool. So we've now identified these folks, and we may want to actually do some outreach to them. So what we can do is, as is the case from our people training, when we want to do outreach to many people at once, we identify who we want to talk to, and then we can create a list to reach out to them. So high dollar donors, we'll add the results of this target. And then we can either go straight to calling them, logging the results of our calls, setting future follow-up for additional fundraising contacts. Or if we want to print out more comprehensive information about their previous donation history, we can print a walk sheet, or a call sheet in this case, that includes all of the relevant information, their tags, any notes on their profile, our previous fundraising contacts that we've made to them, how much we hope to raise from them, and how much they can give within this particular cycle. Select that PDF, and then generate it, and then use that to actually dial through people and have all of that really key information available to us directly from their profile on the sheet. There you go. Kendra Amato, past donations, tracking code, key information, how much we're going to ask based on our calculation. Pretty sweet. Okay. So for our other case, if we need to be able to get a list of transactions, because we're going to need to compare it to the amount of money we already have in the bank account, just to ensure that we're in compliance with state or federal election or nonprofit fundraising laws, we're going to need to actually identify individual transactions and match them to our existing accounts. This effort of financial compliance is sometimes done within software platforms, but in Nation Builder, we don't actually do the compliance for you, but we'll allow you to export all of the relevant information, including how much it was each transaction was for, when it happened, all of the associated information that you get from that donation, along with the contact information for the person that's attached to that transaction. So for instance, in some political campaign entities, I'm familiar with a situation where you have to report on all of your transactions that you bring in that are above 250 bucks. So let's go ahead and filter this donation search by donations of the individual amount greater than 250. And let's say we're, in this case, just running a report on all credit card transactions. So notice that here we're actually filtering by attributes of the donations themselves as opposed to the people that made them. So now the results you'll get will actually be individual transactions that come back. You can't reach out to individual transactions, but you can certainly export this list of transactions to be able to reference them in some external effort so that you can ensure that you're in compliance. Cool. So we've got another minute or two here at the end of the training. I've covered just about everything I was hoping to, from the options you have on your website to be able to take payments, how you can manage those payments from an individual person's profile in the database, and then how you can search both your donation database and your people database to do donor and compliance reporting efforts. Any other questions from the group on finances before I bid you final adieu in this 4th out of 4 training series? Awesome. No problem. Thank you very, very much for joining us. All right, guys, we will be uploading today's session via video to Vimeo, and we'll send you out that information as soon as it's uploaded so that you can share it around with your teams. Thanks so much for joining us, and hope this was helpful in helping you run your nations. Take care.